Danielle, could you let me know if you can see that screen okay? Because I've just changed my views.
Yeah, it looks all good.
Perfect, thank you. Hi everyone, we'll just give it a couple more minutes while we have some people joining us. Thank you for being with us today. If you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, let us know where you're from. You're very welcome to do so. Kathy from Edinburgh. Nice. I used to live in Edinburgh. Lithuania, how lovely. Poland, Hong Kong, Portugal, Isle of Man. Wow, we really do have a good mix. Excellent. Ah, Glasgow. There's nothing wrong with Glasgow, Caitlin. Ah, Leicestershire from Aberfoyle. Oh, a couple of Glaswegians. That's nice. From the USA, living in Portugal, Joss from London. Welcome, everybody. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes just for people joining us. Welcome, Aki. Welcome, Morag. That's the great thing about this program is we have so many students from all across the world, which is lovely to see. So thank you for joining us. I know the time zones must all be very different. So I appreciate you all making the effort. We'll just give it one more minute for any latecomers. Okay, I think the admissions have started to slow down a little bit with people joining us. So I think maybe we can begin. Cool, right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Zayba Ghazali-Mohammed, and I am the program lead for this program, the MSc Psychology Conversion online degree. So thank you again. And what I'm going to do today is just to take you a little bit, take you throughout our program, give you a little bit of an overview as to what you can expect and where you can find out some more information as well. And then I'm happy to take questions at the end if there's anything that you'd like to know a bit more about. Equally, you're very welcome to put a question as you think of it in the chat. Danielle is going to help me keep track of that, and I'll try and get to as many questions as I can throughout. Okay? So let's begin. Basically, our program is over 2.5 years, and I'll explain why it's 2.5 and not 3 in just a moment. It is flexible because it's a part-time degree. We have a maximum of 5 years in which to complete the degree. So the shortest amount of time that you can complete it is 2.5 years. The longest amount of time you can take is 5 years, with that final year being your dissertation year. So there is some flexibility for people that may require it. It's really around particular circumstances that you might need to apply for that, but it is possible. So there is a little degree of flexibility, which is great. We are quite unique in that while we are based within the School of Psychology and Neuroscience, we actually sit across two different colleges. So we sit across the College of MVLS and also the College of Social Sciences, and that's because we're a shared program. So you'll notice that some of our courses and some of our tutors will be in the School of Psychology and others will be in the School of Education, which is great because what you're getting is a range of expertise from different individuals. But practically speaking, it means that we have two sets of administrative teams, and sometimes, depending on the course, you'll also have slight differences in how you might apply for things like extensions, for example, because we have different ways of dealing with that as a school. But we'll give you all that information to begin with, so don't need to worry about any of that. The entire program is 180 credits, and we get you to do 60 credits a year. The cost there at the moment is 15,000 in total. And we have a program handbook and frequently asked questions that will become available to you as well, which gives you a ton of information just about what you can expect, common questions that we might have around things like disability, around things like financial support, around things like support for carers, maternity leave, adoptive leave, all that sort of stuff. We have a very comprehensive handbook, and it's almost certain that if you have a question, the handbook has that information, has that answer for you. If in the weird circumstance that it's not in there, you of course can direct any questions to me and I'm happy to take them on. In addition to that, we have that link tree. I'm going to reference that link tree at the bottom there, bottom right corner, quite a lot because, again, that has a lot of information, and you can also find the handbook in there and frequently asked questions in there too. Again, that's a great kind of place for usual spots that people need to go to, places that you can find advice and some useful university web pages as well, including financial support. So what will you do on the program? So as you know, it's basically 2.5 years, but we kind of just say 3 years. So in the first 2 years, you are doing taught courses. So you are being taught material. You have 8 core courses. So these are courses that you don't have an option to take. You must take them. And that's really part of our BPS, our British Psychological Society accreditation standards. So you have 8 core courses, and then you'll get 2 optional courses in your second year as well. By that point, you'll hopefully have a bit more of a flavour of what to expect and what your interests are, and then you'll make an informed decision as to what optional courses that you'd like to take, and I'll let you know what those are in just a moment. In your final year, it's your dissertation. So this is one research project that is independent to you. You will carry this out yourself with the help of a supervisor who will mentor you throughout. So it's very different to your previous 2 years, but that's really the research component, and that's what gets you the degrees. The difference between a diploma and a degree is this one final year, which is your dissertation, and that has that independent research component, which is what's specified, again, by the BPS, the British Psychological Society, which is our regulatory and accrediting body for psychology in the UK. So in terms of how our programme works, just within the academic session, we always begin around mid-September, and the year tends to end around mid-July. We have 2 semesters in the year. So the first semester goes from September to February, and then the second semester is from February to July. Each semester has 14 weeks. Within that, you will have 1 reading week where there'll be no taught content. It's kind of just a catch-up week, if you like, for you to go over stuff. Have a wee break as well, but also just to catch up on your reading. And within the year, we also have 3 holiday weeks as well, where the university is essentially either closed or you can expect staff to be away on annual leave, because we tend to close for things like spring break, for example. And all of this will be shared with you at the start of the year, so you're able to plan your time accordingly as well. We also have a 3-week period at the end of each semester, which is dedicated towards assessments as well. So by that point, you don't have any more taught material. It's just almost like an assessment period. You're only there. The only thing that you have to do within that time period is to hand in and submit your assessments. And finally, we have a dissertation year. So your third year is shorter than the rest, which is why we call it 2.5 year degree. So it starts from September to April. So you'd submit your dissertation in April. It's a bit earlier than the other years, and graduation tends to be in that very winter as well. So it's quite nice that you get to end in the same year, if you like. So that's why we call it 2.5 years. Hopefully that's nice and clear. So why this program? Why is this program useful? What makes it different to others? Well, first of all, a conversion program is accredited. Our program is accredited by the British Psychological Society. So if you are planning on a career in psychology, particularly if you're planning on a career in psychology within the UK, you will definitely need to have something called the graduate basis of certification. And in order to do that, you need to have a BPS accredited degree. It's basically like saying, I've got all of this foundation knowledge to allow me now to go ahead and do my psychology training. So it's important to note that at the end of this degree, you don't become a practicing psychologist. You have the basis to allow you to do further postgraduate study, which will then enable you to be a practicing psychologist. So if you are thinking of a career in psychology, you will almost certainly need to have another postgraduate degree after this one. That's just standard across the board. This isn't something that's unique to our degree. It's just going to be the case if you intend on practicing in the UK. Of course, for those of you that are international, the fact that our program is BPS accredited may not mean an awful lot unless you know that your own accrediting body in the country that you are in will accept that and will allow you to then go on and do further study or indeed practice. You'll have to look at your own kind of local accrediting standards and regulatory bodies to kind of come up to that conclusion, basically, whether or not this is the right one. However, that doesn't mean that it's still not a useful degree. We have something that's often referred to as the Glasgow advantage, and that is highly valued training in data skills and reproducible research methods. So these are graduate attributes that are applicable across the board, whether or not you choose to continue studying psychology or become a practicing psychologist or not. These are skills that are great across the board for any kind of career, particularly if you enjoy data science. It really does lend you a whole host of different avenues that you can pursue afterwards. And of course, on this degree, we don't assume that you have any knowledge of that beforehand. So if you're coming into this thinking, I don't know anything about statistics, I know nothing about R or the software that we use, that's okay. We're expecting zero knowledge, so don't let that put you off. So let's just go over each of the years one by one. So let's take a year one overview. So we recognize that many of you are either new to study psychology, or maybe you've not studied for quite some time, and that's okay. What we want to start and do is to get you used to how the program works and build your confidence, basically. So we start off by much smaller stakes assessments to build your skills so that you can use the feedback and use that to build up your knowledge and kind of improve further assessments down the line. We do a lot of peer collaboration and feedback. So the fact that this is an online distance learning course, it's important to know that actually a big part of feeling like you're part of a community is to engage in peer collaboration and is to kind of engage in peer feedback as well. So we often use that as part of our courses as well, to encourage that collaboration, to encourage that engagement, and to make you feel like you are part of the community. But also it's an incredibly research-informed way of helping you to improve your own knowledge as well. There is a steep learning curve, I'm not going to lie. An MSc level conversion program is intense. It is an intense period of study. For many of you, it will feel like you're feeling quite lost to begin with. But you do need to remember that you're bringing in a completely you're bringing in existing skills that you already have. You've got a lot of life experience, experience that's really relevant to the program. So you need to kind of remember that it's not just you learning something completely different, but you're also able to contribute a lot more to other people's experiences as well. You are basically going to have to learn a new way of learning, which is no bad thing. So you may have done an undergraduate degree, for example, but might recognize that actually the standards for an MSc program are slightly different. And so that adjustment as well might take a little bit of getting used to. But that's what I mean in terms of we'll start to build you up with smaller stakes assessments to help you kind of gain the confidence to do that. So we always kind of put a disclaimer saying your first year assessments are not your entire degree, because you will get better. It just happens. There's always a pattern of feeling like, oh, okay, I didn't do as well as I thought I would in your first set of assessments, but actually the improvement we see from the first semester to the second semester is pretty immense. And then seeing the improvement from year 1 to year 2 is even better. So that's just part of the journey. You're gaining skills and we're helping you along the way to kind of develop that and become more comfortable in your assessments. One thing I didn't mention is actually what you'll be doing in year 1. So if you have a look at that figure at the bottom there, these are the courses that you'll be taking. So there are 5 courses, essentially. You've got Research Methods 1, which is basically your data skills assignments. This is a full year course. So you'll be starting in September and finishing that up in July. You then have courses that are in semester 1. So you've got Human Development and CHIP, Conceptual Historical Issues in Psychology. And then in semester 2, you'll study Cognitive Psychology and Physiological Psychology. In your second year, we have fewer assessments. So where in year 1, you have sort of smaller stakes assessments that started early on so you can benefit from the feedback. By year 2, you sort of know what you're doing. So we have fewer assessments, but they're higher stakes. So for example, for one course, you might have 100% of the course grade for one assignment at the end of that year. And we build you up. We've given you the knowledge. By that point, you're familiar with the program. You understand a bit more about how the feedback works, about what's expected, how you are learning and how best you can manage your time. And by that point, we find that we're building you up basically for that year 3 independent dissertation, where you can build up all those skills that you've got and you've developed to actually be able to achieve that dissertation at the end, managing your time effectively and producing this dissertation right at the end of those few months. So we will always have formative tasks and we'll always try and encourage independence. So by formative tasks, we're basically saying tasks that will help you develop your knowledge and provide you with feedback to enable you to submit and develop your summative assignment. And your summative assignment is the thing that is graded. Again, we will always ask you to collaborate with peers, and there'll be an element of group work for some of your courses. And just to note as well that the group work is also a part of your accreditation for the BPS as well. So again, if you are thinking about becoming a practicing psychologist, you are going to have to learn how to work with people. It's a big element of that. It's a people-based discipline. So of course, peer collaboration is going to be part of that in the learning process. And finally, in semester 2, you will have option courses. So just to run you through what this looks like, just like year 1, you'll have research methods again, this time running across the whole year from September all the way through to July. In your first semester, you've got core courses. So you have individual differences and social psychology. And then for your second semester, you can pick 2 option courses. So I'm going to read off my list on the wall here of our current option courses that are available. So we have clinical health psychology, educational psychology, applied qualitative methods, current issues, and forensic psychology as our current options. So you'll be asked to select 2 that are of interest to you. It might be that by the time you're in year 2, we may even have a different course that's around to offer you. It really just depends on staff that are available and have expertise that we can use. But at the moment, those are our current courses, and you'll have the option of picking 2 that you are most interested in. And then the final year is really quite different from the other 2. So as I mentioned before, the year is slightly shorter. So you begin in September and you end in April. You will be doing a dissertation. So this is an independent research project. You'll be producing a dissertation, which is essentially a research report. And so all of your skills that you have gained in Research Methods 1 and Research Methods 2 over the course of those 2 years have specifically helped you to this point where you can conduct your own research. You will basically be writing between 10 to 12,000 words in your dissertation, and you will be individually supervised by a member of staff. So you will get to select who you would like to work with. We will ask you for preferences, and we have an algorithm that essentially matches students and supervisors according to their preferences. And within that, you will be able to negotiate the specific topic that you are interested in with your supervisor. And you'll have basically the course of September to April to work on that with your supervisor. At the end, you'll submit your work and you'll have your dissertation. So it's a little bit different because it's by this point, you're not having those sorts of weekly discussions with your peers on different courses, for example. So it is really more of an independent year. So in general, a quick snapshot, you have 3 courses per semester. All of your assessment dates are always given to you at the beginning of the year. So we are obviously mindful of the fact that this is a part-time degree. Many of you have working lives, we'll be working, you will have children, other commitments that you will need to organise your time around, which is why we make every effort to provide you with all of the course dates, all of the submission deadlines right at the start of the year so that you're able to plot them in your calendar and organise your time around that effectively. Coursework is always released in 2-week blocks. So when we begin in September, you will have the first 2 weeks of content. After those 2 weeks are up, you'll get the next 2 weeks and so on and so forth. So everything isn't released all in one go. You get kind of 2-week blocks with which you can work on. So we're not trying to overwhelm you. We're trying to give it to you in manageable chunks, if that makes sense. We do not have any live teaching sessions at all. So all of the content is completely available online. You'll have pre-recorded sessions and you'll have opportunities to discuss and talk to your course leads and also your peers. What we do have are live Q&A sessions ahead of any assignment. So if there is an assignment, there will always be a live Q&A session where you can actually talk to your course tutor, ask them questions, ask for clarification. You'll also have the opportunity to have weekly office hours. So every staff member at the university has dedicated time every week, and you are able to pop into their office hours, which will be online as well as in person if you're around. And you can talk to them as well whenever you need to. They're just sort of drop-in sessions, and you can visit them whenever you need to, whether it's a personal issue that you need advice on, or whether it's something more specific that's academically related, for example. We say roughly it's about 21 hours of study per week, and all of this will include mini lecture recordings, which are about 15 to 20 minutes, your own kind of readings that you'll need to do for the course, any formative activities that you've been asked to do to help develop and that you can get some feedback on, and also the time that you need just for self-study, revision, and summative assessments. Essentially, per 10 credit course, so every course that you have, it's about 100 notational hours. That includes all of the assessments. So when we say it's a part-time degree, it is a part-time degree. It's the equivalent of doing a part-time job. That's probably the easiest way to think about it. So what we don't recommend is that you have a full-time job whilst doing a part-time degree, unless you have an awful lot of flexibility with your work. And not many other commitments. So just to keep that in mind, it is intense. And the reason I put that out there is because every year on year, we get students that reflect on how intense it is, and they didn't realize how intense it would be even for a part-time degree. So hopefully this gives you a bit more of a sense of the actual hours that we would expect you to dedicate towards this. But many students make it work with work and other family commitments as well. So it's totally possible, but it's just about being realistic and knowing that you're going to have to manage your time from the outset. So that's why we help and try and provide you with all of the assessment submission dates well in advance. So let's just give you a little snapshot of what an average week might look like. So this is week 1 for our conceptual and historical issues in psychology course, so CHIP as we affectionately call it. This is what you might see in a typical week just here in the left. So you can see that right at the beginning, you've got kind of what the aims of the week might look like. You have a checklist. So when you click on that, you'll have a list of things that you'll be asked to have a look at. So just to give you an example, these are different checklists that you have for research methods, for human development, for CHIP. So you can see essentially it's things like do the essential reading, watch the lecture, complete this task, do this optional quiz, for example. So you'll see that some of these are highlighted very clearly as being optional. Others are expected. So for example, watching the lecture content. But we try and provide checklists to help you understand exactly what it is that you are asked to do each week. And to be honest, if you follow the checklist, you can't go wrong. So you'll have a checklist at the start. You'll also have a reading list for each week, and we try and make the reading list available to you very early on as well. Within the reading list, you'll have essential readings that you are expected to read. You will have recommended reading, which is reading that would really help you get a much better sense of what you're learning about. but isn't entirely compulsory. And then you have further reading. So that's really, if you've got a deep interest in this topic, these are the sorts of places you might start reading on, okay? So we do try and organize the reading list and make them very clear as well to you in terms of, again, how you might manage your time. You can see in this particular example, we've got 3 different lectures. And that's because we try and make the lectures in sort of small, manageable chunks rather than sitting there for an hour over the same thing. And then there's other resources that might be available. So here you've got a kind of a video clip of an experiment. And then there's a forum as well. So if you have questions that you'd like to ask about, you have a place to do that. And each week will look slightly different, but will follow generally the same sort of pattern. So you'll have weekly mini lecture recordings. You'll have weekly readings, as I mentioned. Some will be essential, some will be optional. We will also provide formative activities or assessments. So these are assessments that we would expect you to submit. However, technically they are optional. Obviously, you would certainly benefit from submitting the material, but they are optional. But essentially, they are opportunities for you to develop your own work, get some feedback from a tutor about your work and how to improve. So obviously, we always recommend that students submit formative assessments. They do not count towards the grade. That's why they're formative and that's why they're optional. They don't contribute towards your grade, but they will obviously significantly help improve it if you do take part in them. And then, of course, you have summative assessments. So these are things that we are grading you on. We don't have any exams on the program. They are all kind of coursework based. You'll have quizzes, portfolios, essays. Where we do have quizzes, they are multiple choice quizzes. So again, it's not a sort of exam format. And you'll also have research lab reports for your RM, RM1 and RM2 courses. And again, those are in preparation for your dissertation, which essentially is a research report. We have a lot of support available to you. So I think one of the questions that we often get asked about is, being an online distance learning program, how independent is it? Are you completely on your own, or actually is there a community here that you can engage with? And it's absolutely the latter. There is definitely a community here that you can engage with. And part of that are the platforms that we use. So all of the teaching staff are contactable via email, but generally what you'll find is that we use Teams, Microsoft Teams, very, very heavily. So you'll get access to all of these resources and all of the software. So even if you don't have it, you'll get access. And we'll have induction activities that will basically talk you through how to get all of this onto your own personal computers. But we have specific course channels on Teams as well as a general channel. We typically will always try and aim to reply to any student queries within 24 hours, although we give ourselves up to 3 working days with which to reply to you. We tend to work during business hours. That's typically 9 to 5 in the UK, and we'll always work to UK time. So any assessments, any drop-in sessions, office hours, activities will always be in UK time. We will have, as I mentioned, weekly drop-in office hours that are available for all staff, and we'll also have assessment Q&A sessions. These sorts of sessions will always be recorded. So if it's a support session to help students, they are always going to be recorded just in case people aren't able to come for various reasons, whether that's to do with time zones or whether it's to do with other commitments that you might have. So we'll always record sessions as far as possible so that there is always that support available to you. As well as myself, as a kind of overall program lead, you will also have an academic advisor who is the best person to talk to for anything that might be related to a personal or a health issue, anything that you're trying to understand a bit more about the program, maybe you need a bit of careers advice. And then you also have your course tutors who you are able to go to for more support for your actual academic courses. We always use Microsoft Teams, as I mentioned, but occasionally we'll also use Zoom for any sort of support sessions, or some staff will also run their office hours via Zoom. And again, you'll have all of these software packages available to you, so you don't need to worry about any of that. As students, you'll also have student representatives. So if there is maybe some feedback that you would like to provide about the course, or anything that you are concerned about, but you don't feel comfortable maybe talking to myself or your advisor, you also have student representatives that you're able to talk to, who will then communicate that information to us. On Teams, we will have discussion boards, which we encourage everyone to use and engage in. That's really your community. And what we do find is that the more people actually use Teams, the better overall experience that they have on the program. We do also encourage study groups, so there will be a space on a Moodle page, for example, where you're able to put down which time zone you're in, and that just helps to kind of see, okay, who else is in my class who's in the same time zone that I can connect with. Maybe we can form a study group. So we obviously encourage that as far as possible. And then for more sort of informal chat and collaboration and connection, we have a coffee room, a virtual coffee room, which is another Teams page where people share things like recipes or true crime dramas or Netflix recommendations. Again, it's just to give you that a bit more of a social space to talk to. As well as that kind of social side, we also have support services for any student that need a bit more support in terms of learning and development. So we have SLD, our Learning and Development Service, which helps with things like writing and assessment support. And of course, we have a disability service as well. So you can register yourself with a disability here at the university, and you'll be given a disability advisor who will communicate any adjustments that might be needed for you on the program, and they will communicate that to the course leads. So definitely worth thinking about that if you think you might require that service. So before you accept or before you start, we definitely recommend reading the program handbook and frequently asked questions, which can be found via that little link there at the bottom. Definitely consider your available time and your commitment. So one thing we always hear from students is that they didn't expect it to be as intense as it is. So yes, it is a part-time degree, but that's not to say that it's still not, a substantial amount of work. It is an MSc degree that's going to require a lot of input, a lot of work, a lot of kind of mental focus. So do think about your available time and the commitments and whether the timetables work alongside that. And we also have summer reading lists that are available for you to have a look at too. So if you just want to get a little bit of a head start or, dust off the cobwebs in the head a little bit, that's a great place to start too. Plans for success. So what we did is ask current students and past students what they would let you know about the program before you came on. And here's what they have to say. So leave your expectations at the door, which I think is a really nice one. Come in with an open mind and you'll learn something great. Expect to be challenged. It is an MSc degree, as I said. You are learning lots of new information. You're learning a new way of working, a new way of learning. So yeah, definitely expect that challenge. Plan your year ahead. We will encourage this as far as possible. We do it ourselves, and we've given you all of the assessment dates right at the start of the year. So plan your year ahead, plan when you're going to take some time off, plan when you're going to knuckle down and focus. If you have children, maybe you need to work around summer holidays. If you have work commitments, maybe you need to work around those. Work out exactly what those kind of crunch points are in your timeline and work accordingly to that, and that will really help you. Communicate with your advisor if there is anything at all, even if it seems really small, anything that you think might be affecting your study or might be on its way to affecting your study. It's just knowing if your advisor knows about it, we can advise very early on, give you any support that you might need early on. The later we find out, sometimes the harder it is for us to support you. So it's always great if you're able to talk to your advisor as much as you can right at the very beginning. Always seek support and engage with your community. So if you have questions, don't just sit in silence, ask us. Come to office hours, put a post out on Teams. You'll find that everyone else is probably in the same boat. If you're finding something confusing, you're probably not alone. So, seek support and engage with that community. Enjoy yourself. Make sure you do take time off as well, because it is an intense course. And finally, engage. This is probably the biggest piece of advice that we've got, which is why it's in capital letters. You will get out from this program what you put in. I think that's essentially what's come out of it. Engage in the program. The more you talk to people, the more you build that sense of community, the more you're able to take out of it. And really, I think that's what will make or break your experience on an online degree. It's really that level of engagement that you're able to put in. If there are things that happen, or you might decide that you want to change your mind around your offer, it is possible to defer your offer. It's only possible, however, before registration or enrollment. So if you have an offer at the moment, it is possible to defer a year, and there's an email address that you can contact that you should do as soon as possible, basically, if you know that that's something you have to do. If there is something else that goes on, a personal or a health issue that is going to affect basically how much time you're able to dedicate on the program, I mentioned earlier that there is some flexibility in how the program is delivered, so you have up to 5 years. It is possible for us to reduce the course load, which will essentially extend the length of the program. Really, if this is something that you need to consider, it's something that you should discuss with your advisor of studies as soon as possible, as soon as you realize that this is something that's going to be an issue for you. Equally, if you are expecting to go on maternity or paternity leave or adoption leave, or you are a carer of any individuals, let us know, let your advisors know. We have very comprehensive policies in plan in our universities. We've got them in place and they are very generous. So for example, if you do need to go on maternity leave, you have that option, for example. But we can't help you unless you tell us early on. So the best thing you can do is whenever you think that there is something that is going on in your life that may impact your studies, let us know. Let us help you. We're happy to help. We're happy to support as much as we can. We know life happens. This is a long degree. It's 2.5 years at its shortest pace. So we are aware that things and circumstances can change. So as long as you let us know, we can do everything that we can to support you with that change. If for whatever reason, you start the course, but then decide it's not for you and you would like to withdraw, that is possible. You'd need to contact your advisor for more information about how to do that. You would need to consider a fee liability deadline. So we have cut-off points in October. After October, I think it's something like 60% of the fees you're liable for. After December, you're liable for 100% of the fees. So if you choose to withdraw after December, basically, you would still need to pay all of the fees for that course by that point. If you withdraw sooner than that, so within the first 2 weeks, I believe, there is no fee liability. And then after that point, up until October, it's sort of about 50% of the fees at least. If you decide that you don't want to do the full MSc and that you'd like to withdraw early, you can still leave with a qualification. So if you complete all of your year 1 courses, you are able to leave with a postgraduate certificate. If you have completed all of your year 1 and year 2 courses, you are able to leave with a postgraduate diploma. And then if you complete your final year, your 3rd year with your dissertation, that's when you get the degree. So at each stage, if you like, there is the option of an early exit should you decide that you need to withdraw early for whatever reason. So in terms of when we begin, this year, Induction Week is on the 16th of September. This is when we will encourage you to register and enroll on all of your year 1 courses, and we'll send out information about how to do that. We would encourage you then to start accessing all of our platforms like My Campus, Moodle, and Teams. We'll have a bunch of welcome events and induction activities for you to do so that by the time teaching commences, you're sort of familiar with how things are working and how you might engage. Week 1 of teaching officially begins on the 23rd of September. So if you want to pencil that date in, you're very welcome to do so. And as I mentioned before, there's lots of pre-arrival information that we'll have, and you can find a lot of stuff there on the Linktree link that I've been sharing. And finally, I just thought I would end by addressing a few of the frequently asked questions that we get. So the program is fully online. We don't ever expect you to be in Glasgow ever. Of course, if you live in Glasgow or you're visiting, you're very welcome to pop by campus, say hello, attend any events or seminars that might be going on that's kind of university-wide. You're very welcome to do that. But it's absolutely not compulsory. We don't expect it. In terms of graduation, you can graduate in person or absentia. So again, you might decide at the end of the 3 years you'd like to come and visit Glasgow and graduate. Absolutely, you can do that. We have a number of students that like to do that, but equally it's not necessary either. You don't need a physical student card because of that very reason. We're not expecting you to be on campus. If you would like one, of course, you can request one. We do have other campus conversion courses that are full-time. So this is a part-time conversion, but we have full-time conversion courses. These are on campus. It is not possible to switch between the two. So if you think that you would like to do the on-campus full-time version, that's something to discuss right now, as opposed to thinking about it later on down the line, because you can't switch. We don't recommend you work full-time, as I mentioned before, unless you have a lot of flexibility with your work and not many other commitments, because it is an intense course. It will require dedication. And also, if you come onto the program with a full-time job, which you're very welcome to do, we don't reject anyone on that basis. But it's worth knowing that things like extensions, for example, that are needed on the basis of too much workload will not be accepted, because we are very clear at the very beginning how much work is expected for you to do on the program. So it's worth just keeping things like that in mind. We use Microsoft Office Suite and Teams very heavily to communicate with you, and we would expect you to do that too. All of our assignments, activities, office hours, etc. will always be in UK time, as I mentioned earlier. There's lots of support available for anyone that's registered with a disability. And so again, that link tree that I gave you earlier tells you how you might go about registering that disability. And finally, we don't expect any prior knowledge of psychology, of statistics. We're expecting you to come in with no knowledge of any of that, not as blank slates, because of course you have a whole wealth of other experience that's going to be really valuable to you on the program. But if that's ever a concern for you, don't let it be, because we're starting afresh, if you like. And I believe the application deadline for this year is the 31st of August. So hopefully that helps. I know that's a lot of information to take in a very short period of time. What I will do is just leave this up here if there's anyone that wants to go onto that link tree. But that's the end of the presentation. So I'm happy to take questions.
We have had a couple of student questions popped into the chat that I'm unable to answer myself, so I thought I'd wait till now.
No
So
problem.
we've had a student ask, does this course have any group coursework, or is it just individual?
That's a great question. So there are elements of group work, for sure, group coursework. So for example, on Research Methods 1 and Research Methods 2, part of your assessments, so it's never going to be 100% assessment on those courses because of the nature of the courses. So you'll have a part of that assessment will be a group work activity where you will need to work into a group and work on a research report, for example. So yes, is the answer. It's not common and it's not for every course, but for research methods, it definitely is.
I'm glad I never took a stab at that question by myself, because I would have got it wrong. The next question is, can you connect us with research assistant positions or internships during or after the programme?
No, I'm afraid not. That's not really within our remits. What we can do is highlight opportunities that come across. So for example, if there is a scheme happening at the university that's looking to advertise to students, we can share that advert to you, but it's not something that we actively do on the program. We have a career service, which you're able to access, who will help you navigate what that might look like, and we'll have a stab at sharing various resources that might help you to do that in your own local country, wherever that might be. But in essence, no is the answer.
Great. It's also been asked, will we be working with professors for our dissertations? I think maybe some other programs, they have research assistants help them with their dissertations. So just asking to clarify on that. Yeah,
so professor is a very specific term. So you will be working with fully qualified teaching staff who have experience of teaching and supervising students. They will not be research assistants. They will be either graduate teaching assistants, who are people who have PhDs, but maybe not onto a full lectureship yet, or you will have a bunch of lecturers, senior lecturers, and equally professors. But they will all have a wealth of experience, and they will all have PhDs and significant research experience to supervise you.
Great, thank you. Is there any chance of publishing what's been studied without the final dissertation? Now, I might be getting this question wrong. I see there's a second part to it. They want to know if they can use the research that they've conducted in any journals, and could you recommend any journals that they could perhaps publish to?
So publishing what I have studied in this course without a final dissertation, it's interesting because what I would say is that if you have done your dissertation, you have done independent research and you've produced an output. So yes, absolutely, you can publish that, and there are lots of avenues to do that. And it might be that your supervisor will help you with that process. You'd probably look at something like a preprint, for example. In terms of without a final dissertation, I would say that's very unlikely because you wouldn't have produced anything entirely independently that wasn't part of an assessment, if that makes sense. So I'm not entirely sure what you would publish in that instance. But yes, we would encourage publication of a dissertation, absolutely.
Great, thank you. Hopefully that answers the question. Another student has actually popped in here. It's been 20 years since I was last at university. Who would I ask for an academic reference?
This is a great question, and I'm not entirely sure I'm able to answer it, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think if it's been that long and you don't have anyone that you can ask, I would speak to the admissions team and explain that, and it might be that you can provide a different type of reference. We have a whole bunch of different people with different backgrounds and life experiences, so sometimes it's not always available, but I would probably contact the admissions team and see what other options are available to you.
Excellent.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm afraid I'm only the program lead. I can't deal with everything that comes our way.
I think
I hope that helps.
Admissions may be able to answer.
Yeah, it will definitely be admissions because they will look at that for sure.
Does this MSc course approved in Europe by Euro PSY? For example, can students continue their studying path in Europe, or is it mainly oriented for UK only?
I can only speak to the UK because this program is developed in the UK and it's been accredited by the British Psychological Society. So anything outside of that, in terms of how it will open up opportunities for you, how it will be received or accepted in your country of residence, you will need to find that out independently. We cannot advise on that, unfortunately. There are just too many variations, too many accrediting bodies globally for us to keep track of. So I would advise that you contact your own accrediting bodies, wherever that might be, and ask them simply.
We've had a student ask, they've said that they're dyslexic, and the previous convener had some additional support from computing assistance. Is there anything like this in place this year, do you know? So
if you have any type of disability or neurodivergence, you are very welcome to register with our disability team. What they will do is take a look at what your additional support needs might be and make recommendations for you based off of that, and provide anything that might be needed on that front. So it will really just depend on the individual, basically, and to your own disability support advisor. But certainly, if you've had experience with that before, you can communicate that to your disability advisor, who will then hopefully communicate that to us. And sorry if it's become very noisy. There's like a massive dustbin that I'm driving down the road. Yeah, they will communicate that to us and hopefully provide you with any support that you might need.
Great. How are study groups formed and projects arranged within the programme?
So it will vary. I think what happens at the moment is you are able to develop your own group. If in the off chance that you have no preference or you can't think of a group that you want to join, then the course organisers will develop that for you. And then you are asked to sign a group work agreement. This is basically where you all say that you're going to work hard and that you're going to contribute to the group equally. The group is then monitored very closely by the course lead to ensure that everybody is pulling their weights. If in the situation that there is one person that can't contribute, either for genuine reasons, maybe they have a medical leave or absence that they can't mitigate, or worst case scenario, you just have a student that isn't particularly engaged, they will be removed from the group, so they won't negatively affect your mark, if that's of concern.
Will I need to buy any textbooks?
Absolutely not. We never, ever, 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 ever put a paywall up for any reading material. So if there is essential reading for any course across the program, it was always electronically available to you. That said, we know that there are lots of students that prefer reading kind of physical textbooks. If you wanted to buy that yourself, of course you can do so, but we would never expect that of you, and we would never ask that of you.
That's great. Will we have access to Microsoft Office?
Yes. Yeah, you'll have access to anything that the Glasgow University has access to. So you will have not only Microsoft Office, but the full suite of Microsoft Teams, the paid version of Zoom, and all the rest of it. So anything that you might possibly need, you have access to. And if you don't have it and would require it, you can request it.
Someone's popped in. Could you provide information about the level of competition for the admissions? How many students typically compete for the one spot on the programme?
So it's not a competition, to be perfectly honest with you. We have a set number of spots that are available, and at the minute it's a very healthy number. And to be perfectly honest with you, we haven't had a significant number of admissions that have gone so far above that number that's making us concerned, if that makes sense. We have specific entry requirements. And so while we have a huge number of people that are interested in the course, we have those requirements there for a reason. So as long as you meet all of the entry requirements, there is no reason why you should be rejected.
Great. What criteria do you evaluate candidates on during the admissions process? Are there any preferred qualities or attributes that the school is looking for in applicants?
No, and I can see that there's another question there in terms of, are there tests or interviews? No. So again, it comes down to the entry requirements and the references that you're able to provide. But as long as you meet, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, as long as you're able to meet all of the entry requirements, there's no reason to be rejected.
Is personal statement part of the application process?
I'm actually not sure.
I'm on the web page just now, so let me just have a quick look.
Didn't think there was, but hey ho.
No, I don't think there is, no. So it just asks for a 2-1 honours degree or equivalent. Yeah. A 2-2 honours degree may be accepted. And again, if you're unsure, submit your application, and you can always ask admissions any of these questions. So better to submit your application, and then you have something to query with admissions going forward. Yeah, I would always say that. And admissions are quite good at getting back to you and saying, okay, well, you've got this, but you've not got this. You need to have this before we can process or whatever. So they're quite good. So it's always worth taking the chance for sure. Just having a little look. Quite a lot of questions being popped in. I have read the link tree. Sorry, memorizing program languages like R. We'd never ask you to memorize anything. We know R is really complicated. I don't remember R in my head, but you have resources and guides that we'd encourage you to use. And actually, the more you use it, the more familiar you'll get with it. I think that might be all of the questions at the moment, but if anybody has any other questions, you're very welcome to unmute yourself or raise a hand. Oh, a new message. Have you already received the okay from the admissions team? I'm interested in how long it took from the day you applied. Oh, sorry, you're replying to somebody else. Lots of chat, but there is, I think admissions do work. I think it's like 21 working days. So I think it's 3 weeks. Quick. Yeah, until they turn around those application, and that's a guideline. So hopefully if we're on schedule, admissions will give that decision back to you on time. One thing I actually would like to mention is if you have already submitted an application and you're curious to how your application is progressing, please use the applicant self-service portal. You can log back in using the details that you used when you were submitting your application, and you can actually check your application status. So sometimes applications can be sat on holding for documents. So the application is not complete without fully submitting all of those documents. So you might have missed an email telling you this if you have missed any documents, but it's better to just go into the applicant self-service portal and double check.
Thanks, Danielle. That's really helpful. I can see a couple of questions that have come up. So how would the supervisor of a final dissertation project be selected? So yes, you would need to make contact with the supervisor. So what will happen is that I contact supervisors that are available for that year. So I get a list of people that are available. I then ask them to specify their kind of areas of expertise, or maybe some projects that they have in mind already. I will share that information with students so they can go, oh, okay, that looks interesting, or I'm not really keen on that one, but that's all right. You then get to fill out a form where you pick your top 5 supervisors. We always try and pair you with one of your top 2. In fact, I don't think we've ever had to pair someone with their third choice, maybe once. But we've got quite a good algorithm that works. So you're usually paired with one of your top 2 choices. But yeah, we would, once you have that kind of list of supervisory experiences, we always encourage students to pop into their office hours, have a chat with them. It just gives you a feel of, you know, whether you'd get along as well. It's not just about the project. But you have to pick someone who works in a way that would work for you too. So yes, you certainly have an element of that in terms of your process and your choice, and then the actual project yourself, you would negotiate with your supervisor once you are paired. Is there an alumni group? Not yet, but it's on my list of things to create. So hopefully there will be very soon. As this is an MSc degree, after completing, can students go straight to the doctorate programs? It depends what you mean by doctorate programs. So yes, it's an MSc degree, but it is a conversion, and that's really important to note. So if you wanted to do something like a PhD doctorate, in theory, yes, you could go off and do that. If you are thinking about a doctorate such as clinical psychology or educational psychology, not really. You would probably need to do a little bit of postgraduate study further, or you may have already a few years experience in the field, in which case maybe it's a hard one to answer, because it's without the context, it's difficult. But generally speaking, if you are thinking about going into practice psychology, you are very likely going to need to do another postgraduate qualification, because this is a conversion course. But it will certainly lead you onto that path. So I'd like to I think looking online, I was looking at the educational psychology pathway. So with educational psychology, you need, at least in the UK, I'm speaking very specifically UK context here, you need at least 1 year of experience. So if you don't yet have that, you would need to have a year of experience before you can then even think of applying, because that's part of the requirements. But if you are thinking about practicing in the UK, I highly recommend going onto the BPS career web pages. They're really quite good and tell you all the sorts of entry requirements that you might need. Will this course be available next year too? I hope so, yes. For students based locally in Scotland, have ever been interested in meeting up for a study support group? Yeah, quite a few people do that. I know that there's one in London at the moment. We've got quite a few students based in London, and they occasionally meet up. Yeah, it's not something we facilitate as staff, but you're very welcome, of course, to do that. And if you are based in Scotland or based locally in Glasgow, you're very welcome to pop into office hours in person as well. We'd love to see you. Can I take more than 2 optional courses? No, I'm afraid not, because it's about the maximum number of credits that you can take a year. And also there's a cost associated with that too. So it's just the 2 option courses. But I appreciate your enthusiasm. Do ODL graduates get the same award certificate as students doing the face-to-face program? So if it's a face-to-face conversion psychology course, then yes, it's an MSc degree. Yep. I see there's required qualitative methods course, and I have a PhD and 2 masters already in qualitative research methods. Would there be any way of asking to replace this course with an option? So it's not a required research methods course. Part of the research methods course in year 2 has a qualitative aspect to it. We have to include that. It's a core course because that's a BPS part of the BPS accreditation requirement. So it's not something we can remove. You would need to do that in order to achieve the degree. What it means though, with your years of experience, is that you should probably just sail through. which is no bad thing. We do have an option course, which is also applied qualitative methods, which you may or may not want to do based upon that reasoning as well. Sorry, I didn't hear you apply for. If we fail a discipline, is there a reset? Can we repeat the subject? It would depend on the circumstances. So if it's just an outright fail, you are offered a capped reset. If you have additional circumstances, maybe medical, personal health reasons, something going on basically that's contributed towards a bad grade, then you are able to apply for something called good cause, which is basically providing evidence of that situation, and then you'll be offered an uncapped reset. So there are options, basically. It's very unlikely that you can repeat the subject. We don't encourage that. It's possible in some highly, highly specialized circumstances. Again, it would depend upon context. It would depend upon permission from our Director of Education. And in most cases, it would also incur an additional fee. Is there any financial support for the university? There you go. Thank you, Danielle, for putting that through. It's quite hard to get financial support for postgraduate courses. There are some hardship funds available if you fit the criteria, but that's something you'd have to explore yourself. These questions are coming from the past. If there are research topics that I would like to investigate in my dissertation, should I make contacts to some Envision professors as soon as possible? No, there's no point doing that as soon as possible because you don't even know if the supervisors are going to be available by year 3. So if there are research topics that you'd like, make a list, keep them aside, put them in a notebook, you know, have a little journal that you can keep contributing to. And then by the time you get to your 3rd year and the time you get to make that choice, by all means, use that to your advantage and talk to supervisors at that point. But no, you don't need to talk to anyone in advance because we only get the list of supervisors annually. Staff change, as you know, and workloads change. So we don't yet know who will be available. Can you provide examples of year 3 dissertation projects? Yes, and we do in year 3. But if you're really, really keen, you simply need to Google MSc dissertation examples, psychology or something, and you'll see exactly what they should look like. But as I said, your experience in RM1 and RM2 is specifically shaped and guided towards supporting you in your dissertation. Can we have the recording of this session too?
Yes. So after this session today, I'm going to add subtitles to the webinar and get it uploaded to YouTube and also our web pages. And I will be sending it out in an email, just like you received the link for the webinar.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think the questions have slowed down now.
Yeah, I think we've came to our time as well.
Yes,
It's been a really active chat and it's so lovely to hear from everybody who is so interested in the programme. And I really do hope that we've been able to answer all of your questions today. There is a lot of material on the programme page with the frequently asked questions. So if there is anything that we haven't answered today or you haven't had a chance to watch the session live and you do have questions, please feel free to go through all of that material that is uploaded on the web page.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. It's lovely to meet you and I hope to see you all very soon.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.